Hello and welcome back to the HikeStrong podcast. Now, a quick note before we dive in. The HikeStrong app is in development, and everything we're learning from conversations like these and from decades of working with hikers is shaping how we build it. So if you want updates and to be among the first to use it, head over to HikeStrongApp.com. Today's episode is one I've really been looking forward to because it's not about chasing huge mileage or summits. It's about something far more relatable. Discovering you can be a confident backpacker, even if your last trip genuinely shook your belief in yourself. The episode title comes straight from my guest, Michele, who finished her Death Valley adventure saying, "I don't hate backpacking anymore." And when you hear what her previous trip was like, a 5,000-foot descent, a rolled ankle 2 hours in, and a whole lot of suffering, you'll understand why that simple line carried so much weight. What I love most about Michele's story is that she rebuilt her confidence in midlife. She didn't grow up athletic. She started this journey wondering if she even belonged out there. Through structured training and a spark of curiosity, she proved to herself that she could step into the backcountry strong, capable, and actually enjoying the experience. In this conversation, we walk through exactly how she trained for Death Valley, the stair work, the pack weight progression, the balance and ankle training, even the moment her guide told her she was the only person using trekking poles correctly. And we explore how those small wins add up to something big, the belief that you do belong on the trail. So let's jump into I Don't Hate Backpacking Anymore with Michele. Okay, so you wrote to me and you said this: I have a backpacking trip in Death Valley planned for the first week in March 2025. It's the first backpacking trip I've done in a few years because the last one was so miserable, it put me off. Even though I trained for 2 months on the last one, I didn't feel fit enough. My March trip is a little easier, 28 miles in 4 days. However, I would like to get some guidance so I can actually feel confident carrying a heavy pack and have some fun. So I'm curious, what kind of mental shift helped you take that leap to try again?
That is a great question. I think what happened was I knew I had the ability and I knew I wanted to be out in the backcountry, but there were blockers and I couldn't identify what they were. I knew it, a lot of it was around fitness. Some of it was around equipment, but I just decided I just wanted to call a professional basically, because sometimes you just need a professional.
Okay. I don't remember us talking about this. What other training plans did you look at before?
So I'd only done a few other backpacking trips and they weren't as rigorous as that one. And that one it goes through the Grand Canyon of the Tuolumne in Yosemite. The worst part is not the elevation gain. It's the elevation loss. The first day is a 5,000 mile drop and it's just hellacious.
5,000 foot.
5,000 foot drop. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Not mile. And I didn't think it would require that much. It was kind of advertised as a moderate trip, which I don't know. It might be moderate for someone who's super fit, but for me, it wasn't moderate. But I knew I could do it. And I really wanted to do the trip because there are features in Yosemite, there's certain water features that you can only see if you go out backpacking. You cannot drive to these things. And I was really motivated. And I also felt like I wanted to experience that. And I knew that even though I totally whiffed on that trip, I knew I had not reached my limit. And I was just looking for those blockers. But I was really motivated to do that trip because I wanted to also see, is this something that I want to keep doing? Do I actually hate it? Did I just have a terrible time? Maybe I don't really hate it. So a lot of it is just trying to figure out, do I really like this activity and do I want to keep doing it?
Yeah, there aren't that many trips where you're actually starting with a 5,000 foot descent. And that's unique. And that's challenging. And that we would have trained very differently if you were doing that with me versus instead of the Death Valley one. But there's something in my notes here about that trip. You said you rolled your ankle on day one.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah. This was when I was of the mindset that you don't pull out the poles until you think you need them. And I should have pulled them out as soon as I got out of the car. And I rolled my ankle on the first day. And it was I was walking down a gentle forest slope and rolled on a rock. It wasn't even anything magnificent or heroic. And it wasn't a super bad sprain. I was 2 hours in to the trip. And then, you're going downhill for 5,000 feet and it just got worse from there. And to be fair, I was not the only person that rolled an ankle. So I kind of think there was something around the trip design, and not that I want to dunk on the people who are running the trip, but I don't know if I were leading that trip with people who are amateurs, would I have designed it that way?
Okay. That's an interesting point. So let's segue into why you picked wildland trekking for this trip.
Yeah. I had been going out with the Outdoor Adventure Club, which is a local outfitter, and they do mostly trips around the Bay Area, although I think on occasion they've done like international trips or out-of-state trips. And I kind of made the run of those trips, like they go to Tahoe, they go to Yosemite, they go to Big Sur. And it's like, I've been to all these places 1,000 times and I just wanted to do something different. And I was also really looking for a winter trip. And typically, if you're going to do something in the winter and you're not experienced with snow, then you go to the desert. So I was looking for something at a certain time of year. And if you're going to go to like Grand Canyon or Death Valley, you don't go in the middle of the summer. They're like, they can do winter trips. And it just like the timing just worked out. And I was really intrigued in the sense that I wanted to try a different travel outfitter just to see how the trips are designed, because there's a million travel outfitters out there and I'd only tried the one. And this one was, rated highly. And I was like, I know I can do this mileage. I'm not worried about the elevation. And that was kind of how I found it. And I hadn't spent any time in Death Valley.
All right. Shout out to Wildland Trekking.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, good. Before we chatted, there was that email that you sent. I read part of it, but you also provided some bullets. Okay. You were very organized. I knew that going into working with you. You said, so you wanted to kind of clarify. So it was 1, how to train for carrying a pack. I really have difficulty over 25 pounds. 2, you said, how can I weave in the training into my current routine, which was 2 days of indoor rock climbing, which you were adamant about not giving up. 2 days of either running or stair stepper machine, plus strength training.
Yeah.
And you were doing core, balance, lunge, goblet squats, not so much arms. And you were doing at-home yoga 3 times weekly. And then you said any other advice for folks over 50.
Yeah.
I don't know. Any thoughts on that? Just those bullets. Actually interesting. I don't recall us talking about climbing. Did you maintain that throughout?
I did. And it was really important to me because it's a major contributor to my happiness and it's a major contributor to my social life. I run a indoor rock climbing meetup at my local gym, and it's just a way of running this meetup. It's just a way for me to kind of give back to all the people who trained me when I didn't have any climbing partners and I was like a doofus and didn't know what I was doing. And people are very, very kind in the community and they help bring new people up. And like, this is my turn to do that. And when I tried doing other sort of activities, like one time I was training for like a half marathon and I wasn't climbing because I felt like all I could do was run. And it just like made me sad. And I'm like, I don't want to be sad for 4 months because I'm training for a backpacking trip. And so I was pretty adamant about that. That was important to me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, clearly you fit it in. So I'm curious about, do you want to give a shout out to that climbing club or no? Or is that a no-go on that?
Yeah. I welcome all people. Okay. So the gym chain is Touchstone Climbing, and I believe it's all up and down California. I don't know if they're out of state, but Pacific Pipe is in West Oakland. Huge shout out to Oakland, my adopted hometown. And Pacific Pipe, I think until this year, it was the biggest indoor rock climbing gym in like the Western Hemisphere or some northern North America, something crazy. It's freaking massive. And so on the Meetup app, Pacific Pipe Ropes, look us up.
Okay. All right, great. All right, folks, do it. So one thing I'm noticing here in my notes is that you also did a lot of running, but I don't recall during your training doing much running. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. Okay. And that was actually one thing that surprised me and I didn't expect because, I had this idea that, you have to keep up your cardio because you're going up and down hills and carrying this pack and all this kind of stuff. And what you had me do was stairs, incline treadmill, but you actually said you prefer stairs because going down is just as important as going up for your joints, ligaments, all that kind of stuff. And so this was the first time I'd actually gone outside and gone up and down stairs. And I think also the incline treadmill, I don't know why it works. And actually after the training, I went and looked it up and they talked about how it helps develop your posterior chain and your core more than actually running. So for certain types of activities, it's better training. And it's like, first it was like, I don't have to run. But also I felt just really confident doing it because like anyone can do it. But the stairs were also pretty magical because there are a lot of kind of hidden city stairs in the city of Oakland. And I managed to find most of them through this training because I kept trying to find new stairs to do. And that was also fun as well. I went upstairs that I had never seen. I went upstairs where when you get to the top, there are like goats and chickens that someone's keeping in their backyard. So, it was just fun going around town trying to find places I could do stairs.
All right. And we're going to get, and I'm not surprised. I generally, or for this trip, if I would not have advocated running unless it is that you wanted to continue doing it. And then I would have let you do it. And that would have counted for some of your distance goals that we were looking to achieve. So yeah, I think it's kind of a myth that you do need to run. I would say there is a caveat to that. It's not necessary. But if you are doing a lot of high altitude, technical mountaineering, then I wouldn't discourage somebody from running if they wanted to. But for this, no need at all. And we'll get into a little bit more about stairs and treadmill because you did make some comments about it. Why don't we just launch it? We're going to go week to week. Okay, we're going to pull out something inspirational or interesting for the listener from pretty much every week. So in week 1, you were able to hike 8 miles and 1,200 feet of elevation gain with 0 pounds. Okay, you weren't carrying anything. That happened to be about day 1 of your Death Valley itinerary minus the 30-pound pack. So you had this base, but as you said, what you wanted to get comfortable with throughout the training plan was how to carry the load. So you had the distance. Now, over time, we needed to work in the pack weight, which is what we did. So this was the start of gearing up for carrying the pack weight for your trip, which was 4 days. The trip averaged 6.5 miles per day with your max day was at 8.3 miles, and it was a total of 26 miles. In week 1, this is the first time you initiated the stairs, and you did it for 15 minutes, and you reported back to me that your calves and your quads were sore the next day, but only slightly. I'm sure, because I do it with everybody, I'm pretty sure I said to you, do not exceed 15 minutes.
You sure did.
I did, because I knew that you were going to be sore. And while you may have had the fitness to continue, it would have only compounded what's called delayed onset muscle soreness, which is what you experienced. It would have compounded that significantly. And I was like, okay, let's just see how you feel at 15 minutes. Any comments on that at all?
I remember it feeling pretty easy, and I kind of felt like I was getting away with something because I didn't have to carry a pack. But one thing you said that stuck with me is that the best way, so it was something along the lines of the best way to get injured is to do this too fast and ramp up too fast. So I was like, okay, he knows what he's doing. He's going to follow the plan. That was one thing that was really great about having the plan. It's I didn't have to decide what the plan was. All I had to do was do it. And it just really took kind of a mental load off. And it also prevented me from slacking off or making excuses. Because this is what I'm doing today. All I have to do is go out and do it, and then I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. You also made a comment on the treadmill. So you did 8% incline for 45 minutes. It was 0 pack weight, simulating a sustained uphill. And you said that was the hardest activity of the week. Anyway, that equated to about 845 feet of elevation gain. And so that kind of ties in with what you were talking about with treadmill. So that was pretty challenging for you. And over time, it obviously got a lot easier. Week 2, in week 2, you went up to 9% incline. So you were at 8%. You went up to 9%. Okay. And you did 950 feet of elevation gain, a little more than the 845 the week before. What was really impressive is you then crushed it on stairs. You went ahead and you had the confidence to do the 30 minutes. You did 30 minutes on stairs.
I did?
Okay.
That seems like a lot.
Stairs.
Wow. Okay.
I know. I looked back at the chart. I'm like, really? You got 654 feet of elevation gain. And of course, with stairs, you get gain and loss. Now, to me, that was a clear signal that you did really have a good base for hiking. Again, you just weren't confident with carrying the pack weight. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. That surprised me.
That actually surprised me too, because I just kept looping and doing them. And also you see a lot of other people on the stairs. And I think there's a motivator there where you're they're going to keep going. I think I can keep going.
Yeah. Absolutely. So segueing into week 3, I introduced the balance progression, which you did consistently throughout. Any thoughts on how the balance training influenced your trip in any way?
Yeah, I think I was really glad to do that because when I was on the backpacking trip from hell in Yosemite, there was a lot of tree fall, giant tree falls. And so it's hucking your pack over, trying to get your body over, trying to get your poles over, try not to ass over tea kettle. And because of some of the tree fall, you kind of have to go around. And I think just being confident that you're not going to take a spill and roll your ankle and do whatever. You know, you never know if it works or not, but it's like, at least you know you're preparing for it if you're doing that balance exercise. And also, like, I think with the ankle stuff, once you roll your ankle the first time, like, the rest is history. You're just going to keep doing it. And so all that balance stuff, even if I never went on a backpacking trip, like tiptoeing back and forth on the invisible balance beam, like, that is like so much better for your ankles than any other ankle exercise they give you in physical therapy. So I don't know, it just makes you more confident.
Yeah, bringing that up, I have people train on the balls of their feet so that just that small surface area of their foot is touching the ground, and the midfoot and heel are elevated, because so often hikers, when they're navigating on trails, is you might step on a knife edge of a rock, or you might step on a small rock of some kind, and only the ball of your foot fits on it, right? So what happens when you're navigating the trail and at least your brain is telling you, hey, I want to do that. Sometimes your body says, nope, I'm not confident doing it. And if we train for it, you're more likely to enjoy navigating on the trail and picking lines that you enjoy more. And so by walking on the balls of your feet, you're really improving the stability of your ankle and the strength as well. That
makes sense, especially if you're going like up and down, like scrambling. Sometimes you can't wedge your whole foot onto the next rock. It won't fit.
Yeah, right. Maybe it's similar to climbing, right? You pick your line in climbing.
Yeah.
Right? If you have good stability, you have good ankle strength, you have really good balance, then you can look at the trail in front of you and you can look at it. Instead of going around some of these things, you're like, I can go on that. I can walk on those rocks instead of going around them. Anyway, just wanted to mention that. So in week 4, you completed your first milestone challenge, and that was 1,000 feet of elevation gain. You added some pack weight. So you did what I call stacking. So you did 300 feet on the stairs wearing 10 pounds. And then you did treadmill, you did 750 feet at 4% incline with a 30-pound pack. So we were kind of now introducing a much heavier weight.
4%. Oh, I wore a 30-pound.
Oh, yeah, and I looked back and I'm like, wow, that's really early to carry. But it was a 4% incline, so...
Right, okay.
So it wasn't that aggressive. You want to comment more on that?
Yeah, so this was the challenge where I did the stairs, then drove to the gym and put the pack on and did the treadmill.
Yeah, perhaps.
I think so, because I think if I go outside, I wrote down where I went. I remember this now, and I remember like the last 10 minutes being on this treadmill and going, oh my God, no wonder he calls it milestone challenge. Because like on paper, it doesn't feel that bad. And after I did the stairs, I was okay. But then like the pack with the gym and only I think it was like 45 minutes I was on that treadmill with the pack. It was definitely challenging, but at no point did I feel like I was dying.
Right.
And I think then I started to cotton to the idea that these are the challenges, you know, I think I can do this. And I think it did help me develop that confidence, just knowing like, this is all I have to keep doing. And I just did it. And I know I can do the next one. Then I kind of started to tip over the edge into, yeah, I can totally do this.
I wonder if it was later on a different milestone challenge, but you make a good point. So we'll get to that. If it wasn't this incident, it was later on in your training plan. And I just want to make a comment about stairs. I don't recommend carrying equal amount of pack weight on stairs as you would on flat terrain. Certainly at the beginning of a training plan and perhaps throughout, depending on somebody's medical history. But every once in a while, there is a client who I get the confidence that can carry equal pack weight. But I just want to just mention that to the listeners. It's pretty stressful. The ascent on any staircase, if you imagine the handrails, that's pretty steep. That's kind of a scramble. And so, you know, carrying a heavy load, particularly at the beginning of a training plan, is not a good option. And coming down, you really have that additional stress. And so anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so you said about the first milestone challenge that it was challenging in a slow burn kind of way. At no point did I feel like I was going to keel over, but it was definitely hard and I'm tired today. The pack weight seems to be getting better. I think the shoulder trouble I was having was because of climbing and not the pack. I also figured out how to pack it better with weight so that it's more stable. Now, later on, we talk about your pack, but you want to mention how you packed it?
Yeah, I'm glad you called that out because I was putting dumbbells in the bottom or a kettlebell, and that's like the dumbest thing I could have done because it's not distributed evenly. And so then I started, ideally you want to have bean bags, but who has a bunch of bean bags in their house? So what I started doing is taking towels and I would use a set of like one big 25-pound kettlebell, which I borrowed from my office gym. I would take little tiny weights, like 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 5 pounds, wrap them up in individual towels and then stuff them in the pack. So the weight was distributed like from my tailbone all the way up to my back instead of having like one big chunk hanging off your low back. And that made a big difference. And then also, like distribute them left to right. So you're not like leaning one side to the other.
I don't know if that was something we talked about or you figured out on your own.
I think I just figured out the hard way.
I think the only thing I would add to that, you make a good point, is always try to bring the weight up, kind of up 1/3 off the bottom. Okay. And that's where the weight begins. But yeah, you did.
You know what I could have done is I could have put yoga blocks in the bottom because they're lightweight and then put the heavier stuff to the mid to the top.
I don't know. I usually recommend stuffing towels in the bottom until it elevates. Yeah, because maybe those yoga blocks they're firm enough that it might push into your low back. But anyway, all right, that's good for the listeners to hear. We also discussed polling. We also talked about, I'm wondering if this is the time when you wore your...
this was enlightening.
So we can talk about polling in a second, but also I think that week we talked about your load lifters and the sternum strap. Something about being on the treadmill, the neck was fussing a bit. Anyway, I think I looked at your pack and realized the sternum strap wasn't in the right place. You didn't have your load lifters, or maybe it was the, I don't know.
I also switched packs in the middle of it because the pack that I had it was a Deuter, and it was, I think back in the day where they didn't do men's and women's, they did like adult and junior or something. And I had like this juvenile sized pack. And I think you saw it and you said, this is like for someone who's 6'5". And so then I went to REI and I got a women's specific pack that was like a total game changer. And then I think that you and I still did some adjustment after that. But one thing I did notice with the incline treadmill was pulling back and yanking on my shoulders because I still hadn't figured out all the straps and doohickeys. But that made a huge difference. I don't remember the sternum strap, but I remember the load lifters because I feel like what helped me kind of unlock the stress relief was they don't have to be in exactly the same fixed position all the time. Like depending on you're going up, you're going down, you might take little breaks from different positions. And so just like constantly adjusting those on the trail can really help. And I'd kind of gotten into this mentality where I felt like everything has to be like locked into this perfect place, but that's like not necessarily true. You're always kind of adjusting stuff every single day, all day long when you're out there.
Yeah. So I think when you were on the incline treadmill, I think we pulled the load lifters tight right up against your back. I think that made a difference. Okay. So that was week 5. Oh no, let's talk about polling.
Yes.
Yeah. What was your takeaway from that?
Yeah. So I like poles. There seems to be an American bias against poles, but I do like them. But I did realize that I wasn't using them properly. And so you had said, okay, next time we're going to talk about poles. And I'm like, why is this guy telling me like, who doesn't know how to use a pole? But it was like a whole lesson. It was a whole thing. And then you backed the camera up and showed me how you're supposed to be doing it. And then I went out and did it and it was completely different. I mean, it was really like your arms become an extra set of legs and then you're more like a deer than a person. Okay. And it was just so different than sometimes you see people using them and it's almost like they're using it like a walker or a cane. But the way you're doing it, it's like instead of a 2-legged person, I'm now a 4-legged person. And then you can really book it if you're doing it right.
Okay. All right, listeners.
I have to share with you what, what's his name? The guide on the trip. This was the last day. We were like 2 miles from the truck and I ended up next to him and we were chatting and we're just like booking it. And he's like, you're the only person on this whole trip who's using the poles right.
Ooh.
He did.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I can
right
take
thing,
a little credit for that. I'm so excited.
You should. You absolutely should take credit for that.
All right. Well, good for you. Well, you listen. No, you get credit. You did it. I could have told you what to do and you didn't do it. Was your guy named Bo?
Oh, yeah. Do you know him?
Okay. You know, it's very disappointing. I was going to surprise you and Bo was going to be on at the end.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my
I know.
God.
I'm so disappointed. We had it all worked out and then he had something come up and he couldn't do it.
Oh, bummer. Okay.
I'm so bummed out because I wanted to talk about training and then I wanted to segue into talking about the trip itself. But
oh, wow. Okay.
Bo, if you hear this,
that's too bad.
We're so disappointed, but we understand.
Yeah.
Life gets in the way, you know? So anyway, you said, I can't believe the training is already half over. Did the milestone hike yesterday and it felt great. The last mile was a drag.
Did it say Marin Headlands?
I don't think so. I think that's milestone chat. Yes, it was. So hold on. So you said
that's a hard hike.
Did the milestone hike yesterday. It felt great. The last mile was a drag, but nothing I couldn't do. The new pack is also wonderful. And I no longer have that shoulder pain I was worried about. Trekking pole instruction made a big difference in my energy level and helped take the load off my feet. And it was 7 miles and 20 pounds, and it was 1,000 feet of elevation gain. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is spectacular, but that hike is not a joke.
All right. Well, you did it. Look, here's what I tell people. The training doesn't always make things easy. It makes them doable and it makes it safe, right? Yeah. I mean, don't expect when you do a training plan that everything's going to feel easy. It just means that you're going to be able to do it safely. Yeah. And it might require a lot of mental toughness. Just depends.
And I think there's an element of like, you're not miserable the whole time, which is kind of my goal for the trip. It's like, I know it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but I don't want to be unhappy the whole time. I don't want to be like, why am I doing this when I could have been doing something else? Yeah,
of course. Week 7. Okay, so not much to say about week 7, but here's a good point. So you were a little afraid of slipping and falling. It was raining.
Yeah.
And so you did the stair stepper instead. You did 63 floors, which is 630 feet of elevation gain. For those listening, just multiply times 10 feet. But I think that's what's good about this plan. And the structure. Well, you knew you needed to get some elevation gain. And so you knew that was a tool in your toolbox. And you didn't feel, I'm guessing you didn't feel dejected is probably not the right word, but if you're not going to accomplish your goal that week, well, you could feel a little down about it. And you're like, oh, wow, okay, I can just do some stepper machine. I don't have to always do treadmill and stairs. And you did. So I just wanted to point that out. In week 8, you crushed the milestone challenge. It was a 7-mile hike. And it was 1,700 feet of elevation gain.
Oh, yeah.
Now, for some reason, it was only 15 pounds. I don't know why we did that. But anyway, whatever. But that was a great hike. We also reviewed snacking that week.
Yeah.
Any comment on the snacking, what you learned?
That was really helpful. It seems like protein is going through a moment right now. You cannot find a trail snack that is low protein. So we went through, this is when you eat high protein. This is when you eat low protein. And when you're in elevation, my digestion always goes wacko anyway. Just understanding that when you're on the move, that is not the time to bust out the high protein bar. Wasn't something that I was aware of. Maybe if you're, you've been athletic your whole life, maybe you know this kind of stuff. And then I think you said that when you're actually, if you're going to stop and take an hour break, that is when you eat the bison bar or the high protein, whatever it is. And so I did have to go hunting around to a few stores just to find the low protein stuff. But yeah, that did make a difference. It really helped.
Okay.
I think you had a 30-page PowerPoint on bars that you showed me.
Yeah, it wasn't that long, but I went through all the macros and pointed out different ones for you to try. Do you remember everybody's favorite seems to be these scratch energy chews? You don't remember us talking about those?
I don't think I know those.
Do you remember what bar you had?
It was like Bob's Red Mill or something from REI. Oh, and then it was like a Stinger. The Stinger bars, low protein was really good.
Yeah, so the Bob's was almost like a chocolate bar. It had 6 grams of protein, so kind of on the edge of where I like to be if I'm really moving and grooving. And then the Stinger, it has 0 protein. No, 1. It actually has 1 gram of protein, which is really nothing.
Those are the ones I got at REI. I like those. And then I bought a bag of salted pretzels.
Yeah, that's great. And just for the listener, if you're going to have protein, it's not an hour. Just want to clarify that. It could even be a 10 or 15 minute. It really depends. But yeah, it's not something that I'm really like if on a high altitude hike, or like you said, if you're just cruising and you want to just reach into your hip belt and eat something. If you're really moving, the high protein's not the best. There are always edge cases, so I'm sure some people are fine with it. Okay, and then in week 10, week 9, I instructed you to focus on carrying 30 pounds on all walks and hikes. So at this point, we were peaking, okay? And then in week 10, you completed the milestone challenges. Las Trampas, was it in Danville, I think is...
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that was 6 miles, 1,900 feet of elevation gain, 31-pound pack. And you said, I felt pretty tired, but not dead. I actually feel better than after the last challenge, even though today was harder in terms of the grade. It was really steep in places, you said.
Yeah, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, that kind of steep. Yeah, that was, I think, just what you described. I said that was what I remember about that hike is just the steepness. And I don't know how you would do this without poles. So definitely glad I was using the poles. Yeah, at no point did I feel like I can't finish.
Yeah, right. That's my point. It wasn't necessarily easy, but you knew you could finish. Do you know what kind of poles you had? Just out of curiosity.
I have Black Diamond, women's specific. They're not super fancy. They have the cork handles.
Okay. All right. Okay. So week 11 was taper.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do much in taper.
Yeah. That was my first concept that you even are supposed to taper. So that was a lesson as well. And you always feel like, I'm not doing enough. This feels too easy. Is it okay? But, it's another one of those things. I'm just going to follow the plan.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's not uncommon to think that. So you get back from the trip and this is what you said. You said the Death Valley backpacking trip was a roaring success. It was honestly one of the best trips I've ever done, despite heat, rain, and hail. Yeah. Hail. Death Valley gets less than 2 inches of rain per year, and we got a third of it on the trip.
Yeah.
In terms of fitness, I felt like I could have done more and actually also felt like I could have carried a heavier pack. The training plan was excellent. I've also decided I don't hate backpacking anymore. That should be the title of this. I don't hate
backpacking. Yeah.
I think that might be. It might be. We'll see. No promises. Some observations. Okay. The goal of your training plan was to do 118 miles, okay, in the entirety, okay? You did 121. So you went a little bit over. It's great. And I wanted you to get a total of 16,500 feet, and you did a total of 20,383 feet, okay?
I think that's a function of where I live. You cannot find a flat trail around here. You just can't.
Well, I mean, you're just above and beyond. That's just the kind of person you are. That's why you did it. Okay, another observation is you started out week 1, 20 miles week 1, and then it dropped from there. I think the reason was, and that's not a bad thing, but I think that's because you realized the importance of doing elevation gain activities, right?
Yeah.
So now you had to kind of transition your mindset. It's like, oh, I got to get this elevation gain. So, and you're going to start adding more pack weight. So that's where we kind of decrease the volume of miles and increase the intensity. Maybe more pack weight, less distance, more elevation gain, less distance. I don't know for sure. It was just an observation from looking at the plan. So
yeah, I've always felt that distance is something that I struggle with. So I think that worked for me. It would be interesting to do a trip where there is a lot more distance just to see how that differs.
Well, call it Wildland. I'm sure they have it for you.
I'm sure they'll have one. Yeah.
Bo, if you were on, we were going to talk about this. We were going to talk about what's maybe a next step for Michele, but rats. Oh, well.
I was going to go back and do Grand Canyon of the Tuolumne just to see if it was not miserable, but I still don't want to go downhill 5,000 feet. So pick a different trip.
Okay. All right. Well, if you change your mind, let me know. Another observation, week 1, you completed 2,650 feet of elevation gain. Okay. And in week 10, okay. So in week 1, you completed 2,650 feet of total elevation gain.
Cut a lot.
But in week 10, you did the same thing. So the question is, well, why didn't you do more, right? It's now the end. And the reason is because you did it with 0 pack weight. And this time you did with all pack weight, right? So that's what we were really working on. You had the base, right? Just not able to carry. All right. And then I guess my other point was the most challenging day on your, the most challenging day on your trip was 7.8 miles and 1,800 feet. And in week 10, you did 6 miles and 1,900 feet of elevation gain. So you were right there. That was perfect. Okay, so those were my observations. A few more questions and we're going to wrap up. So by nature, you're more of a climber and a runner, okay? So you train totally vertically and aerobic, which is different from hiking under load. So what surprised you about training kind of your hiking muscles in the way that we did?
It's definitely less repetitive and you have to be prepared for different scenarios. So I think it just feels more full body, especially I guess I'm not a road runner, but I would imagine if you're a road runner, that does seem kind of repetitive, same muscles, same thing versus hiking. You can't compete with Mother Nature. There's going to be something different around every corner. And whether it's a hole or a log or a stream crossing or you see a coyote on the trail, I mean, it's just very different. And I think that's one of the reasons that people really love it, but it can also be more demanding for those reasons. If you have to scramble or something like that, it's just different with a pack and hope you don't fall backwards.
Okay. What would you say to someone who believes that you can't get stronger for the trail without spending hours outdoors?
That just has not been my experience. I think that there are so many different ways to train. It doesn't have to be outside. It doesn't have to all be inside. I think that day that it was raining and then I went and did something else. There's always something else you can do. And I think that sometimes people get into this mentality that it doesn't count if I don't do it a certain way, when really it's all cumulative and it all counts. Like, even as we were reciting this training plan, you were going week by week, and like every week is cumulative. You're doing a bunch of things in the week, but as long as at the end of the week, you've got the mileage, you've got the elevation gain, it all counts. And so I think getting into this mindset of it all counts. And there's a lot of different things you can do. Even if I plan to do this one thing today, but I've got to go train a different day, that you can always fit it in.
All right. So you said that Death Valley was one of the best trips you've ever done. What moment captured that for you?
Oddly enough, it was the third day when it was raining and hailing. Because by that point, we had seen so many different parts of the park. People imagine a desert as, like a cartoon version of a desert with, one cactus and nothing. But there's so much to see in terms of wildlife, flora, fauna, the type of weather you can get. The first day was hot. The second day was perfect. The third day it rained and hailed. And there are just things you can see backpacking that you will never see in a car because a car can't go there. But I think by the time the third day came around, and it was kind of amazing because like I had all the equipment. I wasn't tired. My pack didn't hurt. I felt confident because it was day 3. And even though it was raining and hailing, I remember going up this hill in the mist and knowing like once we got to the top, we were going to have to like scramble down this side, and a little worried about let's not throw ourselves over the edge. And just like, I'm doing it and it's raining and it's still fun was, I think, probably the most memorable thing.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. I won't even ask you the next question. You kind of answered it. Last question.
Okay.
Yeah, that was great. Do you think you'll approach your next trip differently now that you've built confidence kind of under, a training load?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because I don't have doubt. It's just like, how do I get there?
Yeah. Okay. That's good news.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't grow up an athletic person. Like I never worked out till I was like 30 years old. I was a bookworm and never did any of it. So like to do this in midlife and then have the confidence to do it. It's pretty, I just never thought I would get here.
Well, isn't that just the perfect way to end it?
I didn't even do that on purpose.
Well, I'm so grateful that you're here and that you are speaking to all of us, and particularly giving me the opportunity to work with you. It was really a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Easy to work with. I don't know, keep building your bucket list and we'll stay in touch and let me know when I can help, okay?
Sure will.
Okay. All right, Michele. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, Marcus.
Bye. That concludes this episode of the HikeStrong podcast. I'm committed to keeping all of the episodes for free. All I ask is that you subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends. My goal is to build a vast community of hikers with the confidence to crush any local or global trail. I hope you will join me in this endeavor. So until next time, train, hike, repeat, and as always, I'm here to support you every step of the way.
Cool.
That was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I was worried I wouldn't remember anything, so I was glad you had the chart you were reading off of it.
Yeah, I do my homework. I go through it all. I don't want anybody... Yeah, I mean, I make it where I'm just prompting memories. You remembered kind of everything I said. So, yeah, it went smooth.
So you reached out to Bo, huh? Did you know him?
No.
Or you just reached out to Wildland?
So what happened is, I reached out to Wildland and I didn't think I was going to hear back from them. And I tried them again. Then somebody texted me and it looked like spam. So I didn't even open it. In fact, I wasn't going to. And then I was just curious and I did. And I was like, oh, wow. I'm like, they actually pulled through. I'm like, this is exciting. So I actually talked with Bo and they recommended Bo because he was your guide.
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't even expect it. I thought it would just be someone from Wildland Trekking and we talk about the trip and whatever. So anyway, but he reached out today, just said there was stuff going on with family and stuff. And so anyway, it would have been fun, but
that would have been a trip. I would have been so surprised.
Yeah.
I'm just curious why you wanted to talk about my experience, because I think in the past you've mostly interviewed people who do like a lot more hardcore types of trips or are more like serious athletes. And I was wondering if maybe you just wanted a show like about a regular person.
Well, if you listen to, I don't title them so that you could tell who I'm interviewing, but this was a little different. And that's kind of why I wanted to do it. It more was about your struggle with carrying heavy pack weight. And that was the key thing. And so I wanted to address that. And I liked when I looked back at your experience, when I looked back at the numbers and stuff, there was a good story to tell.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And so that's why. And I liked you as a person. And so that was going to make it fun to, to chat with you again and kind of just rekindle our relationship. So as you may or may not know, building what's called the HikeStrong app. We started coding yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So
Congratulations.
we're going to launch in probably February. We'll launch it.
Great.
We'll launch our core feature, right?
Mm-hmm.
It won't be all of it. That'll take about a year, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be everything. It shouldn't be everything at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm, busy doing that. And so anyway, this is the HikeStrong podcast. That'll be the HikeStrong app. So everything will tie together.